This video, we're looking within the marketing area and the marketing drop-down at forms, how to create your forms. So these are typically where you get like an opt-in information from someone, or you might have something more detailed like a membership application or a membership cancellation or something like that. You can do lots of different things with forms. So let's create a form and learn about how to build them and then how to use them. So we're going to hit create a new form just here, and we get this blank form just here. The only thing on here will be the styling of your of the platform, which you can turn off. I'll just point up straight away to start from a clean slate. In styles up here, just turn off the branding picture here. You may have that option there, you may not. If you do, you can start from a clean slate like that. So let's go back to the beginning now and have a look at fields. So once we're building the form, we basically need to put on areas of information, right? So you can see here we have standard fields of full name, first name, last name, etc. All the standard forms about a contact, okay? And the last one down here, very important, is a button. This is a submit button, okay? So that's what actually submits the form, okay? Now you can also have custom fields. So if you have information that's not included in the standard, you can add additional custom fields here. And put them in on the form, right? And we'll use that now as a bit of a demonstration as we build this out. So I'm going to go back to standard, and I'm going to say I'm going to drag across full name, I'm going to drag in email, and I'm going to drag in phone number, and I'm going to say I want a custom field. We're going to add a custom field, and you can choose all these different options. So text is a single line of text. Large text allows more like a paragraph. Numerical demands a number to be put in. A phone input will mean that it has to suit the phone of your particular country in order, like, it have to be a real number unless to be accepted. Monetary converts to a currency, obviously. Checkbox allows for a series of checkboxes, but multiple checkboxes can be selected. A single option means that it's a drop-down list, and you can pick one of those options. Multiple options mean is it presents a drop-down box, but after one has been selected, someone can hit the drop-down box and add another one, and they can add multiple categories to their answer. A radio box means they can choose one of a list. So it's sort of like the checkbox, but it's a radio where they have to choose an option. And this is particularly relevant when you get into surveys because your conditional rules will set off radio boxes. Okay, so it's just an important thing to note. And you can have date lists and you can have a text box list, all right? So text box that they can select from. Okay, so we're going to keep this really simple, and we're going to just create a text record, and we're going to call it something creative like what are you looking for? Okay, and then the placeholder is what appears inside the form to say type their answer. So, we can type in right here, enter or type your response here, ... Okay, and just leave it as a contact record and hit save. Okay, so now we've saved that, and just note when you have a heap of these, it doesn't always add right to the bottom, so you might need to look through and find it, but it will be there. Once you've saved it, you just drag it down in here. Now you'll notice I can't edit that, so if you've made a mistake with what that custom field is, you can either add a new one and just keep going, or you can go into your settings and look for custom values. Sorry, not custom values, custom fields, and you'll find it just here. And so you can edit everything you just set just here, except for the type of field. Once you've set that, that's set. So the only thing you can do if you made a mistake there is to delete it, which you can use this button here and start again. So this is fine, so I don't need to change it. So I'm going to go back into marketing, go back into my form builder, and I'm going to edit the form. All right, so I've created that here. The one thing that's missing is a button, which I'm going to add down the bottom. All right, so there's my basic form. Now, a few things I want to point out as we build this out. So the full name, I'm going to check this box that it's required. Now, I can change the placeholder, whoops, which I can say, enter your name here if you want it. I'm really just showing you what you can do. I could do the same with email, or I could leave it. And the other thing you can do is you can do stuff like say, well, this phone is not required. So I'm going to put in here phone optional. Okay, so people know that's an optional field. And what are you looking for? This is going to be a required response. And what that means is that anything that's asterisked, there must be something typed in there in order to submit the field. Now you'll notice that the button says button, which is not very helpful. So we're going to say, submit. Now submit's another terrible word to use in marketing. Depending on what your offer is, you probably want to make it something more like get video or get started, something like that. In fact, it just hurts me to even write get submit, so I'm going to write get started. It's hurting my brain. So a couple of things you can do here. You can make the button full width. You can change the background color of the button to be whatever you want, etc., things like that. All right, so I'm going to leave it just like that. Now you can also do some more fancy things with this. So let's have a look at a few other things here. So styles, you can change it to an inline, which means if you've got the width on your page where you're putting it, it goes like this, or you can leave it as is. You can show the label on or off, so you can see what that does to it, and that's where your placeholders come in mind. You might want to make a neater form just like that. You can change the form style in terms of like whether or not there's a border. You can see I'm changing the border there. I could make that 0 and I could have no border. The corner radius depends on how curved that is. You can see if I put that from 12 down to 0, you'll see it just changes to be quite square. And then the width of the form you can change as well. Okay, so that's sort of what you can mess with just there. Obviously the background changes the background. That looks terrible. Okay, so let's just leave it like that as what we've got now. Actually, let me change that back to white. Okay. Now, the other thing that we've added for this video for you is some custom styling. So I'm going to drag my text pad over here. So if you want, you can really jazz up your form and you can copy this and you can put this in the custom CSS, right? And see what happens now. Now look at the form. Now it looks amazing. So you can steal this and put it into your own form and make the form look like this. So you can still adjust some other things here, like the background, fairly simple without breaking that. But yeah, you can basically do that and it gives you some fanciness there. The thing to note here is we've actually included a shadow as well. So see how there's some dark blue and some lighter blue. Now, if for some reason you wanted your button to be a different color and that shadow no longer makes sense, you can either change this number here or where it says shadow, just change this little 3px to a 0 and it will get rid of it. Probably the easiest solution. But there you go, there's some fancy code editing. All right, so I'm going to leave that as, I'm just going to leave that off and say 0. Notice there is no save button on this, right? Everything you do will just be live straight away, right? So now we've done that and we've done some fancy styling. And you'll notice here now that I've got no headers, I might actually write this and be a bit more friendly and say enter your best email, phone, optional, and instead of this, I could write, what are you looking for? Because I've now removed the title of that with my custom styling. Okay. Now notice here when you do use this custom styling, it has taken away the asterisks of what's required. Don't worry, like as soon as someone hits get started, it'll highlight the field that's missing. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, last but not least, options. You want to relabel the form what it is. This is going to come up as the source of your leads occasionally as well, depending on what metrics you're using, but this is important to make this something that makes sense. So I'm going to say this is the one from my Facebook ad. I might even say it's from my, let's say my Plateau Facebook ad, something that I talk about a lot with another business. So that's fine. Now on submit, you can either show a message and you can type in a message here, or you can redirect the user to another page. So that's what you would do if you had this on like an opt-in page and you wanted them to go to a thank you page, which might, for example, have your booking calendar on it. This is where you put the URL in. So that's very important. You paste that URL in to make this work correctly. Or if it's more like a website contact form, in which case you might still want to make it redirect to a URL, you do have the option to simply say, show a message and say, thanks, right? So that's not very exciting, but you can type in whatever you like there. And when the get started button is submitted, It will submit the form, and whatever triggers you've set to that, I will get to triggers. And either way, so whether or not you've set it as a message or URL, it will still do the submit action. It just depends on where they go from there. Okay, so I do recommend using the open URL and having them go to the subsequent page. Now, if you have a Facebook pixel that you're using with your marketing, you can put this in here. I'm not going to talk too much about that here. What I will say is the sticky contact is a really important toggle to use. Usually, and I'm not aware of cases where you would not want to do this, every time you see this button, always turn it on. What this means is that if your potential client, the person using this, is on a URL that they've been on before, then it will remember their information via website cookies. So in other words, if you have a form like this and they fill it in on your landing page and you have sticky contact turned on, and then they go to a booking page which has a calendar from your automation system, and that also has sticky contact selected, and you'll see that in the calendars, it will remember the information. And this is really helpful because it means that they can book the appointment and not have to put all their information in again. Very, very powerful. This is one of the key points of difference about this platform because nothing else does this. And when you use different platforms, you'll find a lot of people will abandon a booking, particularly if they already put their information in and you're asking for information a second time. So you might have additional information on the calendar booking, but it will at least pull everything it can from what they already filled out, like their name and email, from a previous form. And of course, even if they visited on that same browser on another day, it'll still remember it. It is super awesome. So yeah, I recommend flicking that on. Unless you've got a very specific case that you don't want it to do that, then leave it turned off. Okay, so from there, how do you actually integrate the form? So there you have a couple of options. If you're using the funnel builder within your automation platform, you can just, within the funnel builder, select the form when adding in a form. Or if you're using a different page builder or you're using your own website, you just hit this integrate form button and you have two options from here. One is to put this iframe embed. So that's basically just grabbing this custom bit of code and pasting it into like a custom HTML or iframe embed area on your page, and it will display the form. Or you can just copy this link. And what this does is that when someone clicks a button with that link, it'll just open that form, right? So that's the other way to do it. So that would just show it on a blank page, so it's probably not recommended. Either use the funnel builder that is provided or just copy this embed code and paste it to where you need to go. And then once all that's done, just hit save and exit. And that is how you create your form.